Patience is not simply the ability to wait. It's how we behave while we're waiting. And whatever causes you to drop your plan forward and to open your vision, your own deeply personal vision of what your life could be at its very best, that's what I call meeting your rhinoceros.
Look to America, which delights some and disturbs many. Young people must decide, is graffiti fun or is it dumb? Way graffiti, too, is a kind of art and worthy of praise. Well, it certainly does change the appearance of an often drab setting. Yet,
who do not appreciate the efforts of the so-called street or folk artists, people who insist that the writers are vandals, bent on destruction.
Graffiti. It's one of the most controversial images we see in our daily life, but the way we consume it changes depending where we are. From tagging to elaborate art, the style and importance of the aerosol can changes from region to region. In its earliest days, it was an expression of angst in the black community that spread throughout the Northeast. The gang names came later to the game. The expressive nature took off from the streets of New York and went global. One of the four pillars of hip-hop, graffiti often took the rap for being the visual of the violence and illegal activity that so often surrounded it. This is Kansas City. Not immediately what you think of when the thought of graffiti and diverse art pops into your head. But aside from the scenic views and passion for the Royals, the city has a new vibe that is being fed by the look of beautiful graffiti art. Meet Donald Ross, aka Scribe, the guy from the open scene. Well, he is the most well-known graffiti artist in the Kansas City area. He's not your typical guy with the spray can. He is also the only full-time artist at a hospital in the entire nation. This is his story. Ross grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, right when the graffiti boom was beginning to take its home in the Northeast. Seeing it in the subway systems, he was immediately attracted to it, and through the help of some friends, he started to spray.
It was probably a sophomore in high school when graffiti became something that I was really interested in. Taking the subways into school, and then I met another artist at an animation class. So I can blame my mom for getting me into graffiti because I ended up sitting next to a graffiti artist in an animation class at the Mass College of Art in Boston, and his name was Bandit, and he's the one that all of a sudden made all of it make sense to me. He brought me the history books at the time. He brought me spray can art and wild style and all the stuff that now there's 1,000 books on it, but at the time there was like only a small handful of them that had ever highlighted that, and all of a sudden it just made sense to me.
Though the subway is where he learned the art, it was closer to home that he found the inspiration for the moniker Scribe.
My dad's a minister, and I bumped into it on a biblical level because it was somebody that recorded history, and then on a historical level beyond biblical stuff, they were usually somebody that was in charge of telling stories, and things like hieroglyphics and stuff like that. Those were people that would typically tell stories for people or tell their own story by putting stuff up on walls, and so it just seemed to make sense, and there was nobody out there that had taken the name, so I lucked out.
After high school, Scribe decided to go to the Kansas City Art Institute, thinking he would get into animation after college. During his freshman year, he met another artist with a passion for drawing that would end up being more than just a peer.
We met at the freshman mingler at college, so within a few days of us both going there, we just kind of got into the same little circle, and so friendship at first, definitely. I think we had a little bit of a tighter bond, talked a lot more together about different, more personal stuff, dreams and all that kind of crazy stuff. And then I think it was October. He finally asked me out on a date.
It would be years later till Ross was added to Elisa's name, but in the meantime, Scribe was at a crossroad. After a graffiti incident during his freshman year, he was asked not to return to the Kansas City Art Institute for his sophomore year, though a chance at redemption did not take long.
But Big Dude's Music was the first place that had ever hired me to do something, and it came at a great time because after I got in trouble for graffiti, I was put on 3 years of probation, and it made the news because maybe it was a slow news day, but Big Dudes reached out and tracked me down through my probation officer, and that led to me paying off my fines. And ironically, the city also hired me to do 4 paintings for my probation office to help pay for some of my fines too. So it's good. Like, it was kind of ironic, but at the same time, it also I was really blessed that like something instantly positive like that to help reverse it came up as quickly as it did.
It was the break he needed to be able to get the ball rolling on being a recognized artist. The first gig led to another, which led to another. This would go on for years as Scribe would do here and there commission jobs while also doing signage jobs. The wait for a breakout was in times unbearable, but he and Elisa continued to work. It wasn't until he met Carl Palermo from the Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas City that an opportunity arose that even Scribe never saw coming.
Interested in possibly coming to work here because he said, you know, that would be a little better than slinging hamburgers and a little more stable, and he was married and, you know, starting to have kids. And he brought the portfolio in, and from my standpoint, I've got artists in my family, so I do have that appreciation. And I immediately could see where that would be really a unique talent to be able to tap into, and there became a position open as a painter, and Scribe was looking for basically pretty solid employment, you know, something that he could depend on. So we got him in as a painter, and he immediately started showing some of his talent. And the first thing that really happened was I found an opportunity in what was our emergency ambulance entrance for him to go ahead and do a wall mural. And he did it, and people just kind of flocked.
It was clear that the maintenance painter really was an artist, but even with the extra skills, not everyone was immediately certain how artsy the maintenance painter would be able to get and how a new title could potentially hold.
We had had artists do mural work at the hospital prior to that, but this was a whole other level.
No, I wasn't sure that the hospital would fully support a salaried artist. I'm so glad that they've decided to do it, and I think he has touched far beyond just Kansas City. We have alliances with the Children's Hospital in Mexico City, and he's actually been there and did work there. And so I'm so glad that they took a chance because it's been probably the best thing for this place so far. I think he has a great heart.
The idea of an in-house artist was new for everyone, but Scribe began to thrive, and his biggest fans were those who were patients at the hospital.
You know, there was this one day actually that I had come to the hospital through an entrance where a lot of our visitors come through. And so I was walking alongside some of the families as they were coming in, and there was a child getting off the elevator and pointing at this funny little duck character that is right off of the elevator, and he was talking about it and kind of laughing about it. And then we walked further into the hospital, and you know, the floor, which Scribe designed, is amazing. And then the child was like looking at the floor, you know, and pointing out the whale and the fish, and then we walk a little bit further, and I mean, it just continues, you know. And that day I was like, he has transformed this place, you know, into this wonderland, and it's everywhere. And from the moment you get off the elevator, you're in this world of fun and funny and creative, and just really positive. So it's great for our families.
But kids are so much more in tune with their surroundings than adults. I think as we grow older, we end up just kind of marching through and not paying attention to things. But Scribe has a real gift when it comes to picking up on what kids are really into and what they see, and they grab a hold of that.
A graffiti artist thoroughly understanding kids? Not something that you hear on the daily. Yet the forms and shape that Scribe creates not only attracts the eye of the trained artist, but that of a child looking for distraction from the pain they are in. His cartoonish art definitely doesn't hit the note of angry art, but it is certainly not the ordinary. If you haven't caught the note yet, Scribe paints almost solely in an animal's world. He says a lot of his style comes from the cartoons he grew up watching like Tom and Jerry, but the heart of his work came back to a simple childhood interest.
And I remember making a conscious effort of asking myself, what was it that originally brought me joy when I was drawing stuff? And what are the things that I like the most in my life? And one of them was animals. And so I started drawing some different animals, and that's actually how Rumpus the Rhino came about.
Oh yeah, that rhino you keep seeing throughout all of his pieces? He's pretty important to Scribe. He is a key ingredient in plenty of the pieces you see throughout Kansas City. Also, Scribe is the Rhino.
He was a big character who, like rhinos can't see very well, but they're kind of by themselves, and they can be aggressive, and I was struggling with like anger because of all the school stuff, and that rhino character became a way for me to do like kind of semi-art therapy for myself, and also tell a story about me without anybody knowing that it was really me. I'm not as big as some dudes, but I'm bigger than a lot of dudes, and I just saw myself that way. And rhinos can't see very far. And at that time in my life, I had a plan when I went into high school that like, this is what I was going to do. And all that stuff got knocked out of the way. And when I started reading about the rhinos, like that they were kind of solitary, they couldn't see, like conceptually all that stuff made sense to me. Like I couldn't see into the future anymore. I used to have like this clear idea, this is what I was going to be. I'm only waiting to finish high school.
While waiting has been a big theme in Scribe's career, there are many things he can check off the list. For instance, Scribe has painted an entire new fleet of ambulances, a helicopter, and even designed artwork for kids that are visually impaired. That project was a special one that allowed him to team up with Elisa on it.
Honestly, the CCVI mural, I think, was our best one together. One, because it took us both out of our comfort zones. Sometimes we would get not stale with each other at all or anything like that, but when you're doing just kind of your own fun stuff, you get a little bit more critical on the other person, like, no, you shouldn't do that. Let's do this way. And with CCVI, we were both like, what's your idea? Because we were basically starting blind, not knowing how other people see things and take things in. And
incorporating different kinds of materials, as well as the hard surfaces that are really interesting to the children. A lot of our kids, there's a whole continuum of vision, so while they're all legally blind, some will be able to appreciate light while others can't. And Scribe picked up on all of that, incorporating these mirrors that provide some light reflections, and then the embedded kind of diamond rhinestones. These sort of glossier finishes also give a reflection, so the children that can appreciate that light dynamic, it's playful for them and encouraging for them to be able to experience that.
With big projects like the Jet and other numerous projects around the hospital, there is no shortage in takers who want a piece of his art.
The hardest part about having him here is that the line of people is so long that he's probably busy for the next 10 years. He's that good, and everybody loves him, and he can go in and just interview a group of people and get a feel for what they want, and he can just make it happen.
With all this work, it was no wonder that a simple cubicle wouldn't do. Scribe spends most of his time in a hidden office behind an unmarked door of a parking garage where he designs and creates every day. The office is fully loaded with state-of-the-art printing tools, and this allows him to create with more than just paint. It allows him to think, and that thinking is what creates the imagery that takes us into his world.
And when I do go up and paint on the wall, like my main goal is to just, I want to suck people in and make people wonder, like, what would it be like to have this actually walking around. I wish that, I've done gallery shows where people were immersed in the environment when they were I painted on the floors and the walls, and that's my favorite stuff. If I could do that out in the public, that's what I would do, because I want people to be inside of it. It sounds weird, but like, I see this stuff all the time when I'm driving and like looking around. I see my cartoon characters in live space, and painting on the walls is the closest thing I can do to insert them into there, next to, eventually I want to get into sculpture work and more 3D stuff. But when I paint on walls, it's just to like, I like giving people a window into like what I see walking down the street next to you.
Creativity is what keeps Scribe going. When he is out of work, the fun still continues. Whether it is the next new creation, going and painting with his 2 sons, or just hanging out with the dogs, Fudge, Cake, and Bacon. Regardless of what Scribe has done in his life, one thing is clear. His work is having not only an impact on Kansas City, but on everyone who encounters it. The negative stigmas of graffiti are clearly not ones that apply to him. He says he is still waiting for his next big idea to come to fruition. But one thing is clear. This Rhino has already left a great footprint